Welcome to Wild West Garage. My name's Morgan and I'm leaning on a 2005 Dodge pickup with a 5.9 liter Cummins in it. And I've just finished replacing all the injectors and the fuel tubes. Try to get out of this glare here. And I thought about making a video about that, but there are a lot of videos out there on changing injectors. A lot of guys out there that have far more experience than I do working on these engines, and to be quite honest with you, this is the first time I've ever taken a valve cover off one of these engines. I used to work for a company, a blasting company, that's all they had was these trucks, and we didn't have any trouble with the engines at the time I was there. You know, turbos and, you know, water pumps and stuff like that, you know, belt tensioners. That was kind of the extent of it, and actually a lot of that stuff I farmed out because I was busy working on the equipment, the drills and the excavators that we did our work with. But so anyways, I am going to also change the high pressure pump. I think it's called a CP3 pump, I believe. And you know, there's lots of videos on changing those as well, but there's one thing that I've noticed in all of those videos is all the concern there is about dropping the nut that holds the gear onto the pump, the gear in the washer. And I think there's a common theme in all these videos that I've noticed, that how people deal with that to prevent that from happening by, you know, sticking a magnet on the shaft and then turning the nut out onto the shaft of the magnet, like the telescoping magnet or whatever, and then getting another magnet to pull the washer out onto it, just so it doesn't fall into the engine. And I'm going to do that as well, but I'm going to do something else too to make it so there's no way that nut and washer can drop into the engine. So stay tuned for that. So there's the pump right there, this big lump of metal right there. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take these lines off. So there's a line there, it's a banjo bolt, there's another banjo bolt there, and then this is like a flare nut, or you know, whatever you want to call it. It's just there's a not really a flare, but there's a fitting, like a seat, tapered seat inside this nut. So this line, I have to remove it completely from the truck, and it goes up to the high pressure manifold here. So there's another nut right there. So that's the like the common rail, we call it, manifold. So I think that's I think that might be a return line, I'm not sure, or that's the high pressure line. Doesn't really matter, you don't need to know what it is to get it off there. So I'm going to take all that off, and then there's a plug right here that comes off. I'll just pull that off right now, electrical plug. And I think that's it as far as connections go on this thing. And then I'm going to take the can't really see it, but there's a accessory drive belt. It's right here. It's kind of in the way. There's a cover in front of the on the front of the timing cover that I got to take out. So just having that belt out of the way will help me get access to the to that cover, and I'll be able to reach down in there and see what I'm doing. So I'll show you that. Right, if it'll focus on the, see, there's the belt, and then there's so between the timing cover and you can see that kind of disc down in there. You've got to take that off, and that's where you access the nut and washer that hold the gear onto the pump. Now that I've given this a little thought, this line here coming off the back obviously is high pressure, so that's this, I'm assuming that's the supply to the rail, because this is a high pressure line. and these other two are supply and return. I'm not sure which is which, but like I said, it doesn't really matter. So you're going to bear in mind that this could have pressure in it, and I don't know if it does, but I'm going to find out. So you just want to be prepared for some fuel to possibly spray out of there, and of course you're going to have a leak. So I've put a pan underneath to catch any fuel that's going to drop onto the floor. So here's the cover, goes into the timing cover. It's where you access the nut on the pump. So I made a little mark here, and that corresponds to the to a mark on the cover. Looks like this kind of was maybe a little bit over tightened, but I'm just gonna turn it to the same spot. And my son's over there and he thinks I'm talking to him. Yeah? But I'm not. I'm talking to my people on YouTube. Yeah? Pretty lame rags. They do. So here's my solution for preventing the nut and washer from falling into the timing cover. I just stuffed a rag between the gear and the case and the cover. So pretty basic. And I used a magnet to fish the washer out of there, but not much chance of anything falling down there now. So here's the tool I made for pushing the shaft out of the gear. Very crude, barely adequate, but it did the job. You can see that the head of the screw was right on the edge of there and pretty close to the edge here. I suppose if I'd put some washers on, it might have worked better, but I think if I was going to make another one of these, I would make it out of a bigger piece, and then I'd put a little, weld a little piece of rod or something, or put a pad here. Maybe even a pad about, well, not quite as big a diameter as this, but just so it extends into the case a bit further. This kind of barely fit in the hole. Well, yeah, I should have taken a picture of it when it was in there, but anyways, it did the job. So what you do is just you put it, there's two threaded holes in the gear, and you screw these, you turn these screws into the gear, and then this pushes on the shaft and pushes it out of the gear. So it worked. Okay, so I've got all the nuts off that hold the pump to the timing cover, or the timing case, and sorry, my arm was in the way. So right here, I don't know if you can see it, but it's starting to come away from the case a little bit. There's a bit of a gap there. So the last thing you want to do is stick a screwdriver down in there and start prying, because that's a precision surface, right? And so if you put a burr on that surface and it holds the pump a little bit crooked, it's going to affect the way the gears mesh inside. So you want to avoid putting anything in between there that's going to alter that surface and cause you problems later on. So what I've got is I've just got this stick here, and I'm just gently prying between the pump and the case, not putting a lot of pressure on it, just wiggling it a little bit. And so I'll just keep doing that until it comes out of there. So there it is, out of the truck. So probably would have been a good idea to hit this with the pressure washer before I took it apart, but that's, it is what it is now, because there was quite a bit of junk sitting on top of here, and once I got this unbolted and I started taking it off, I realized how bad it was. So I scraped most of it off. You can see it all down there. But anyways, just like you wouldn't want to put a mark on this surface here. You want to make sure there's no debris in there either, right? Because that'll have the same effect. And I just wanted to talk about these studs here. So these two top ones, I was able to get a socket extension combination on there to get them. But that one, because of where the computer is here, see that? Kind of lines up with it. I couldn't get a socket and a ratchet in there to take that off, so I ended up using there's enough room down in here to get an open or box and wrench in, and I just used that. It was a bit time consuming, and it made me wrench it all the way off to the end more or less. So I'm going to make sure I'm going to run these nuts back and forth on those threads just to clean them up with maybe some penetrating oil or some lubricant, and get them turning real nice and smooth, so when it goes together again it'll be easier. And here's the new pump. Put grease all over the O-ring and in this area here, you can see, because I want that to slide in easily. And I also put grease on the opening down there. So I was able to push that all the way in with my hands. I've seen a few videos where you get it in so far and then you can just get the nuts on, so push it on the rest of the way, but I was able to wiggle it and just stuff it in there, so it's doable. And these nuts, I believe, are the nuts that hold this on. I believe the torque spec on them is 13 foot-pounds, but I'm not getting a torque wrench in there. Maybe on this one, the closest one, but the rest of them, no. So just don't go too crazy tight on them. You know, they don't. It's just holding it to the timing cover, right? You know, I don't think it needs a lot of force to hold it there. Got the nut back on. Had the rag stuffed in there to prevent anything from falling down. No worries this way. There we go. Out it comes. Now I just have to torque the nut and put the cap back on, the cover cap, and put the belt back on. This thing's gonna run, I think. Just when you thought everything was going good. See that line there? Like between the do not over tighten and the part number? That's a crack. So I was tightening this up, and I remember, see, I put this mark here. I was just trying to turn it back to that mark, and I heard a popping sound and it broke. So I've got to order one of these now. So I'm just gonna wrap things up here in this video. Yeah, probably, I don't know if, you know, it's an old part, it's brittle, right? Plastic. Even if I, you know, maybe if I had to put a torque wrench on it, I think it's 13, what does it say? 8 Newton meters or whatever that is. It's not a lot. But, yeah, I didn't think I was making it too tight, but anyway. That's why things have torque specs, right? Sometimes you can get away with not using them, but in this case, it may have broke anyways, even with the proper torque spec, because it's old. Anyway, hopefully I can get one of these. We got a local truck shop here in town that's open till midnight or something like that, so hopefully they have one. Did a little plastic welding. I can't get one of these today, so and I'm not sure when I'm going to be able to get it. So anyways, piled some plastic on top of the crack, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some sealant, Permatex ultra gray, and I'm gonna run a bead right inside here, just inside of the O-ring. The big fat bead of this stuff in there. And then we're gonna screw it in carefully, just enough so this O-ring touches down, and this glue should hold it in there from spinning out once it's cured. So until I can get the new part, because I got to get these guys rolling in their truck. They've been without it for a couple of weeks now, waiting for parts. So maybe it'll run.
Huh?
Maybe it'll run.
Is this the first startup?
Yeah. Just spraying a little bit of degreaser on the pump to get rid of any fuel residue so I can check for leaks later. Are a little squishy for this big rig. Thanks for watching. You know, I've never done one of these before, so it was a learning experience, but I watched a bunch of videos on it. That's what I like about YouTube. It's a wealth of information. It's also a wealth of time-wasting garbage, but you know, it has its good points and its not so good points, but anyways, that's just the way it is, right? There's lots of stuff you can entertain yourself with, let's put it that way. So see you next time. Thanks.